Welcome back to ENR Groundbreakers. I'm here in New York again with a man who doesn't need much introduction. At least not much introduction from me, so I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Amel, great to be with you today. I'm Greg Kelly. I'm the CEO of STV. We're a professional services firm, as you mentioned, based in New York City, where we provide planning, architecture, engineering, and construction management services across three verticals: transportation and all its modes, buildings, and water. And that's currently how we're structured today.
And as I understand it, you're about to take on a new business line.
The fourth vertical for STV. That's correct. Thank you for bringing that up. When you think about transportation, you think about water, and you think about buildings, infrastructure. The fourth vertical that's missing in that is how do we power all that, the energy side of it. And so we're going to be very intentional in the launch of our strategic plan to build that capability, in part because our clients need that. There's a real energy demand in this country, and our clients have expressed that need. So within our existing clients and their energy needs and beyond, we're going to be building that capability and capacity in STV. So you're hearing it first in this discussion.
An exclusive. So when we get down to the really granular level of energy needs, is there something that STV is seeing that is really precipitating that we need to get this business line launched now?
Well, I think there is actually an energy demand across the country right now, and driven in part by investment in infrastructure like data centers to enable AI. And that has put some strains on the system. For our existing clients in the verticals we serve, well, the largest user of energy prior to these big data centers being built was for water treatment plants. And so you look at our needs there, our needs in transportation, our needs in buildings to be energy efficient. Our clients are looking for those creative solutions. So whether it's in transmission or in substations or energy resilience, we're trying to help our clients solve those challenges they're facing now. So I think it's right in front of us, and we see this as an opportunity to step up and to be more impactful with our clients.
Data center, AI, those are huge buzzwords right now, huge buzzwords. How do you feel about the sort of, last year this was something that, really was not catching on. It was there. We knew about data centers and we knew that AI was coming, but could you have imagined that it would have exploded so quickly?
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. I often say this tongue in cheek. 3 years ago, nobody could spell AI, at least in the most mainstream. But today, it's almost ubiquitous, or it's becoming ubiquitous. And so it's actually very encouraging and energizing to think about the capability, how that can transform the AEC industry. And so there's lots been written about what the risks are and the downside, and we're able to manage that. We're able to think about that in a different way. But I think it's pretty exciting, and I think there's the opportunity there to do so much more for our clients and the profession that we're in by having these new tools available to us. And the infrastructure is being built out right now to support that, and we're of course part of that.
Talk to me a little bit more about the strategic plan and how that fits within the strategic plan, because I know that this was released, was that in March,
Correct.
February? Strategic plan, and so why now? What precipitated the release of this plan?
Well, strategic planning is ongoing in all healthy organizations, including ourselves. And so our last plan was about 3 years ago. And just to pick up the last topic you mentioned, AI, 3 years ago, we were not dialed in on that. It was developing. The people that were in Silicon Valley were developing what's all around us right now. So that's just an example of an external implication for our plan. We had to step back and say, all right, technology is accelerating. Let's look at our plan and make sure we've got that. We evolve how we're going to deploy technology at STV. But your question, Amel, around why do a strategic plan, why talk about it publicly, it's really important that our employees know where we're going, that our clients know what we're about. It's about making choices. We're going to focus here and maybe less over here, but also be public because we're holding ourselves accountable. What good is a plan if you're not going to operationalize it? So we like the idea of being accountable. It's part of who we are as an organization. So yes, we get excited about talking about that future. What I will say about the plan is it's not a major deviation from our last plan.
Okay.
We're a professional services firm. We're about infrastructure. We're about, importantly, the mission of making communities better. That hasn't changed. So the wedge, the direction we're heading, we like to say it's high level and directional, has not changed. We're going to continue to move in that direction. The difference with this one, and maybe this was embedded in your question, is that this one's about pace. There's an acceleration here because the external factors, you talked about technology, there's a demographic shift. You've got new generations coming into the workforce. We've got to accelerate their technical development. We've got to accelerate their leadership development. And we have to find new ways of working to support what our client needs are. So this is absolutely the best time to do a strategic plan, and we've chosen to be very public about it as well.
Absolutely. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it includes three main pillars, and so that's expanding STV's business, which you've done with this business line, elevate STV's people, and evolve STV's operations. So on the ground, what do these, I mean, these are very high level topics, but on the ground, what do these priorities look like in action?
Yeah. That's a really important question. I love it. Thank you. The underlying thesis for STV and our strategic plan is that infrastructure is local. What gets built, how it gets built, who you partner with, how it gets paid for, they're all local decisions. They don't come from the center somewhere. So we believe that with deep conviction. And that's not going to change. No technology is going to change how those things happen locally because it impacts communities. And again, I'll go back to our mission to make communities better. So what does it look like on the ground? Directionally, when we think about growth, we want to be in the geographies where there's investment opportunities in infrastructure across our 3 and now 4th vertical that we're standing up. So it's about geographies, it's about the markets that are growing. And so again, you think about the four verticals at STV, and it's all about the services we provide. What are clients looking for? So we think about growth. Amel, that's going to be different in each geography that we operate in because of that local thesis. So where we may be expert in one area, pick a service, it could be design or construction management or program management in an area. In another area, it might be in planning. But we also want to leverage the resources across the U.S. So we look for our local leaders to study their market, to understand what's going on, and we build that capacity and capability in support of the overall growth, expanding our business. Our approach is not do everything everywhere, every place we are.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah. That we don't think that's necessarily efficient or maybe the best strategy for STV. So that's the expand pillar. The elevator people. This is a people business, always will be. There's lots of chatter about AI replacing people.
Yes.
What we like to say is your job is not going to be replaced by AI, but somebody who knows how to use AI is going to have that job. And we think that's really the direction we're going. We could dive a little bit deeper on how we're viewing that across 3 horizons. But it's really about elevating the people and investing in them. So we've got a career lattice, we've got pathways to excellence for our people that I think really lets people know that there's a way for me to advance. But we also are elevating our people to think beyond a project.
Okay.
We're trained as engineers, we're trained as architects, and we often look and say, okay, this is about the strength of materials, it's about the site location, it's about the shape, the form, the massing, how it all looks. But we want to elevate our thinking to what is that asset that we're working on really serving? It goes back to our mission. It's serving a community. And so the bridge is not just a bridge, and we have some great bridge engineers. The bridge is an economic development solution. It's connecting 2 communities. It's making communities better. A school, a hospital, housing, a new highway. It's creating economic opportunity for people. And so what we're emphasizing in this plan is let's elevate our view of what we're solving, that community issue. Again, going back to the mission. So that's part of the elevate our people. The last one is evolve our operations. and it goes back to harnessing technology as a partner, not as a threat. That's really, really important. We're excited about harnessing technology. We're in the process of bringing on a new chief technology officer. We're already piloting different ways across the organization, both in the corporate functions and in the delivery functions for our clients and the work we do, how we can use technology in new ways. Amel, there's been lots of discussion out there about, again, AI and the impacts. We look at it in 3 horizons.
Okay.
We think the next 2 years is about productivity gains. We're all, just like the advent of the iPhone 20 years ago, right. Nobody could imagine what that would do for us and how that, you can't imagine being without it. It's your handheld computer. We think the next 2 years could be about the productivity gains through new applications of new technology, whether it's in our corporate functions in finance and communications and HR, or in the delivery functions around project management. It's all there, and we're embracing that. We're running at it. We think the phase after that is going to be a bit of a hybrid phase in how we contract in a business that historically has paid for hours performed. Now that next phase will be figuring out more of a hybrid type of contracting model, how we get paid for those services. And there's some work to do there, but that's beyond the productivity gain. And we're already doing some things through one area I'm involved with is the ACEC Research Institute, which is, I serve as the vice chair, and one of the studies we've commissioned there is to look at this very issue. Okay. How do you create value for how do you measure the value created for the services? And we're looking at adjacent industries, and we're partnered with the University of Colorado on this study. So more to come on that over the next year or so. So we're not being a spectator here at STV. We're taking a leadership role saying, where do we go with this next? Then beyond that hybrid phase is how platforms are going to be totally changed. And that's maybe in the 6, 8 to 10 year range. Okay. And so we know it's coming, but we're not approaching a cliff. What we're approaching is an evolution. And it's not like any other historical evolutions we've seen across any industry. So we're pretty excited about embracing technology. So that's that third pillar of our plan, evolving our operations. We're always looking for efficiency. We're always looking for better ways to do things, to remove pain points. For what we like to say is freeing up that creative brain space to find better solutions. And we think that unlocks more opportunities for all of us to better serve those communities. Back to the mission.
So not a cliff, but a shift.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. I might quote you on it.
Was there some, considering how much things have, at a federal level, how much things have shifted in terms of regulation, in terms of, things like such as tariffs, policy, right? How much those things have shifted in such a short time. And what we hear a lot from companies is that there's uncertainty, and then they are sort of waiting to see, but there is an air of uncertainty. How do you, as CEO, you're expected to be this sort of force of calmness, at the head of the company. How do you keep that ship, going at a calm pace, level-headed, and not so reactive when it comes to the changes that we're seeing at a federal level?
Well, I'll go back to our strategic plan for a moment, and that, Amel, is we don't think in the short term. We think in the long term in what we're building. There's a business reason for that, but that business reason's also tied to the work we do, which is generational. We're sitting here today in the Empire State Building that was built in 13 months in the 30s. I mean, it's pretty remarkable what happened. I don't imagine they were sitting there at the time knowing that 2 to 3 generations later, this asset would still be the world's most famous building. What we're living off today, you grew up in Detroit, I grew up here on the East Coast, was conceived, planned, designed, built, and maintained by our parents and their parents and their parents. And the nature of the work we do is for the same going forward. So the short-term issues that are out there, whether it's tariffs or policy changes, you have to put that to the side and take a long view, because that's what we do. The projects we built, any of the infrastructure that goes on, is going to be there for generations. So you have to take that long-term view. Your question is, as the CEO, how do you maintain that calm? Well, that's in the job description. You just have to have that longer view and know that you're building something that's going to be around for a while, and a resilient organization does exactly that.
Let's dive into a little bit about your CEO story, right? So STV became a portfolio company of the Pritzker organization after its employee ownership was recapitalized in 2019. You were appointed CEO in 2020, formerly serving as CEO of WSP's U.S. operations. Do I have that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you set the stage, as far as you coming over to the company, can you set the stage as to, why was that such a critical transition for the company? Because I imagine you're coming in with lots of pressure to perform.
Boy, we're taking a look back, and we all like the distance between today and that moment in time around the pandemic, and that's exactly what happened. The recapitalization of STV, which was wholly employee-owned to the Pritzker organization, took place in late 19, and we all know what happened in early 20. And I came on a short time after that. So it was, your question started with leadership. That was a unique leadership challenge. When you come into an organization and everybody's remote, it's kind of hard to be a leader, be visible in a traditional way. You had the economy locked up at that point in time, and so we had projects that were slowed or stopped that we had to deal with. We had new ownership that had just made a significant long-term investment in STV. So it was a unique leadership challenge. And what I would say, Amel, is that every leadership moment is different. And I can remember coming in and being asked questions, are you going to do here what you did there? And the short answer was a quick no, because you have to recognize what you're coming into. You learn an organization, you learn the external environment we were in, which we just talked about. You learn what the ownership and the expectations are, and then you get to work. And you do it in incremental ways. And you build capabilities, you build a new strategy, and you build it in a way that it's resilient and can work through all those moments in time. Because leadership is just a series of moments and learnings, and it's how you apply that and go forward. So I can tell you that I came into the organization and you said, wow, this is going to be interesting. But you get up every day energized to say, all right, let's tackle this. I mean, your first order of business was keep your employees alive. Your second was to keep the company alive. And then everything else got behind it. And we all came through it because you take a long view of history and you say, all right, we're going to build something special. And what's happened is out of those moments that test you, you realize the resilience of an organization like STV. You realize that really strong leaders emerged, and you say, we start from a really good place. Because the stress tests you. You realize who your best talent is in terms of leadership, and it rises up. It's just such a great opportunity. So I think out of something bad came something very good, and from that we picked up a sense of pace and priorities about what really matters. And now we're beginning to accelerate that with our new plan.
What was the moment, going back, digging deeper into leadership, what was the moment for you personally where you felt that I can do this, I can really do this. I see a way forward for the company, for STV, and I can do this. Considering you're up against this pandemic, something that we haven't dealt with in years and years, right? So what was that personal moment for you where you felt like, was it meeting the team at STV? Was it, looking at their portfolio of work? What was that moment where you felt, okay, here's where I'm going, I can do this?
I would say there was a series of moments. Let's start with the ownership, TPO. Fantastic owner. Long-term view, patient capital, thinks in generations. I'll go back to what we do. It's generational. So that gave me assurance that, okay, we have the ability to think long-term. We're not thinking about an exit. Got it. Okay, that was really, really important. So that allowed us to make the investments that needed to be made to get the business really running at pace again. It was meeting the team. It was out talking to customers and clients and pulling all that together. And my key moment was just realizing how much potential is here, and then watch it come to life as we came out of the pandemic. That was really powerful. And I said, oh, we've got this. We've got the ability to do some really great things here at STV between our ownership and our talent and the markets we were in. And I said, we can take this footprint and really expand it and be more impactful in the communities we serve. Again, back to the mission. Great. People care. And there was this collaborative spirit it was really, really good to see. If you send somebody, you communicate with somebody, say like, I need your help, people just would run at it. And that exists today as well.
What was we often hear about, a company going to employee-only ownership, but we don't often hear about the recapitalization of a firm and what that process is like. Would you say the goals were completely different in STV's case, or was there, are they one and the same? Could you go back a little bit?
Yeah, the question is around employee ownership and saying, all right, that builds culture. Okay, culture kind of drives the employee ownership piece. You're still serving clients, and part of that culture could be that high degree of client service. Often when firms recapitalize, the strategy can change a little bit because you're looking towards maybe some other financial metrics or some other kind of timeline that's different than what employee ownership talked about. It's not either or. There's ability to merge the two, and that's what we've been able to do and successful with here at STV, is that we have a sense of culture about serving clients well, technical excellence, great project delivery, and a sense of pace, and the ability to invest that the recapitalization allowed us to do to grow into some new geographies and to new markets. So for us, bringing those two together has been very powerful. That's, I think, been the STV story.
Excellent. Are there, the company's now $1 billion company, and what leadership or even what, I would say, projects do you remember that were really marquee projects for you? Can you tell me a little bit about those?
So at STV, we have some signature projects, and since we're sitting in New York, I'll pick one that become a personal calling card, is our ability to the role we played on LaGuardia Airport. And there's not a person that comes through New York, through LaGuardia, that doesn't look and say, wow.
It is fantastic. I just came through.
And I will tell you, Mel, the first time I used the airport, and we were involved in building it, but the first time as a user, I was actually, I flew into LaGuardia. I was coming from someplace else. Okay. And I came off and I looked up and I said, did I get on the right plane? I mean, it was spectacular. And I remember, texting our team, just saying like, unbelievable, like great job. So I think LaGuardia for STV has become a great calling card. But there's other transformational projects we're working on. The 2nd Avenue subway extension, as an example, here in New York City.
Much needed.
Yeah, and I'll stick with the New York region since we're sitting here, is the new Hudson River Tunnel, the Gateway program. We've been involved with that for years. We're so happy and excited to see that going forward and supporting the team, because that is transformational as well. So when you think about some of the big projects at scale, they're the ones that come to mind. But we also operate across the U.S. on all different scales to make communities better.
From your engineering and technical background, not every CEO has that. Do you feel like you have a leg up on the other ones?
I have a lot of friends who are other ones. So, I respect and have learned from all of them. As an engineer, I think it's helpful in this role because you can relate to the work we do. You can relate to your teams, you can relate to your clients. In the same breath, I'll say, but that's not, my job is not to be an engineer anymore. My job is to set direction. My job is to make decisions on strategy. My job is to allocate capital for the right kinds of investments for STV, and to lead the team in that way. But it does help, and occasionally I will admit too, I'd love to speak up on a technical issue, but honestly at this point I'd probably get it wrong. And we have a lot of people that are a lot smarter at that than me. So, but I do think it helps.
There's lots of, I mean, even with AI, our favorite word, two words, right, or two letters, with AI and technical development, there is a lot of talk that, you know, that technical background might not be as important as we start to see technology really take over in leading engineering firms. What's your thought on that?
I'll leave the leadership of the firms aside for a second, because they're all, you know, choice moments in time for boards or owners to decide what kind of leadership you need, whether it's a transformation or an acceleration or a turnaround. So put that aside for a second. But if your question, you know, I hear your question as, does the advancement of AI reduce the need for good engineers? And the answer is a quick no. You know, AI is not going to replace the humanness of an engineer who is interfacing with a client. I'll go back to decisions need to be made on any kind of project. Humans are going to make those. AI is an assist. It's not a replacement. You still need to understand what you're doing. That's not going to go away. That wisdom, that experience, that judgment about what works and doesn't work and making decisions, you can't replace that with AI. Not in the near term. And I question that in the long term as well. What we do with infrastructure reshapes communities. We're not going to turn that over to AI. There's still people that have to make those decisions. So we think that technical expertise is not going to go away. But it's going to get a big assist. And as part of our strategy, that third pillar of our strategy, evolving our operations, we're embracing it so we can be more efficient, so we can free up that brain space as good engineers, architects, planners, construction managers to make better decisions, maybe in a more timely way. And we think that lifts everybody up.
I want to go even further back, because we went to, you know, you first coming to STV, but even further back to when you first entered into the industry, and thinking about, you know, you obviously, of course, everyone wants to work for a good company, and thinking about what that meant then when you first got into the industry. How has that changed your thoughts on what makes a company a great company? Not just a good company, but a great company now. You know, how has that changed for you?
Yeah, I love the question. In our profession, good companies took care of their clients. Good companies did great technical work. Good companies did what they said they were going to do. If they made a commitment, they delivered on it. Nothing special there other than hard work. I think what makes a really good company today, that's maybe a little bit different than, is a little bit more forward-looking, a little bit more agile, where you can adapt to changing conditions. And I think a real focus on the people side of things is really important today. I would say that in that previous time, it was a little hierarchical. You spent your time developing your career. It was a career ladder. And it's very linear on a ladder. We like to think of it as a career lattice at STV, where you can move laterally and you can try to get different experiences to accelerate your career. But we do think that adaptability going forward, particularly with the rapid, you know, the acceleration of technology adoption, we think that makes for a very good company as well. And they'll spend the time investing in it, and that's something we've done at STV, enabled by our ownership. We're not thinking about, you know, an exit date, that kind of investment won't pay off. We're doing what's right for the business and for our clients long term.
Right. I mean, I guess that sort of leads into my next question, which is about risk and how that has changed for you as well, as you've sort of climbed that lattice and been in different roles. How has your understanding and your willingness to really think about risk and take risks, how has that changed for you?
Well, I think it changes I'll go back to the earlier comment about your experience and your judgment. Your experience enhances your judgment and how you look at risks. And anybody's in these types of roles or any leadership role, they've all got their lessons. And the good leaders learn from those lessons and how they apply it, whether it's project risk or enterprise risk. It's how you adapt to those. You know, in my own personal experience, I've been fortunate enough to have some really good experiences, and from that you try to make better decisions going forward. But in this business, in the AEC space, you're always evaluating those kinds of risks, but you don't run away from it. You say, like, how do we solve this? And so I think here at STV we've done a very good job with that. We wouldn't have been around as long as we have been if we weren't good at that.
Right. Yeah. Thinking about the next 10 years, next 5 years, and you've touched on this a little bit, but thinking about today's construction and engineering leaders, what do you think we are overlooking? I don't want to say overlooking, but maybe underestimating the most about the potential of the industry, in terms of where we could go. What are you most excited about? What sort of gets you the most optimistic about that future of the industry?
Related to people or just the industry as a whole?
The industry as a whole.
I like to say I wish I was starting my career over again, because I believe we're going through this arc of transformation and opportunity in our industry. And you don't realize how fast you're moving until you look back, or how far you've come. And I think in the last 10 years, and I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see tremendous change in the industry. And we don't even realize how much has happened already. Technology is one example. Development of people is a different example. Investments in new types of infrastructure, like we spoke about, to enable technology. I think in the future, we're going to figure out how to do things better, faster, and at less cost, because we're harnessing all these things that are happening around us, around technology. I think it's exciting to work. We're going to be collaborating differently in how contracts get structured with clients. I see that coming, because we've all got to work together to do more with what we've got. And I think, with just the engineering and architecture space we're in, we have to figure out how to be more efficient. And we're already doing that. We're already looking at those productivity gains. So that gets me excited, because if we are better collectively is what we do, those communities get better. Again, back to the mission, making communities better. I think it's a very exciting time. I talked to a young engineer just yesterday. He's an undergraduate. He's finishing his second year. He's in the grind of taking all those really hard engineering courses, thermodynamics, statics. He's taking his physics. And he was a nice young man. He was connected to a friend. And I said, "Why did you choose engineering?" He says, "I grew up in Charleston, and they built this bridge there. And my previous firm actually worked on that bridge." Yeah. He says, "We built this bridge there, and I was a young man, and my dad used to take me out there being built." He said, "I want to do that someday. He goes, I just want to be an engineer." That's what inspires me. Like, you can see what we do. It's tangible. You go around the city, any community, what we do matters. And so that gets me excited. So for this next generation, we want to enable that and harness it, and it's not going to go away. It's a great career profession. I complimented the young man, and we're going to hire him as an intern next year, just because I could tell he's passionate about what we do. So it was just such a cool conversation, tucked in the middle of my day.
One of the things that you mentioned just previously is that you don't know how far you've come until you look back. So I'm going to flip that question back to you and ask you, when, thinking 10 years from now and people are looking back on the Greg Kelly era of leadership at STV, what do you hope they remember about your leadership? When it comes to employees, when it comes to your clients, and when it comes to the partners that STV works with?
Yeah. Gosh, I hate that question. Well, only because you don't want to say what your legacy or contribution is. You want others to make that evaluation. But I'll give it my best. I hope they say that STV harnessed the moment and ran at the opportunity as an organization. I hope they say that we did what we said we were going to do. We said we were going to, expand what we do. We were going to elevate our people, and we were going to evolve our operations. Hope they look back and say, "Yeah, we did that." Because I think that commitment matters. Mm-hmm. That goes back to our core values around integrity and partnership and optimism. I hope they look at us and say, when STV walks in a room, we know that they're coming in prepared, and they're going to be our partner to solve things. Mm-hmm.
And then that third core value about optimism is really that we see a better future. Like, we think that the technical training our employees have received just allows us to solve those really important problems. So let's be optimistic. We can find that solution. So I hope they say that, yeah, STV is just, we like working with them. They're good people. They come in here, they want to solve the problem. They're a great partner, and they do what they say they're going to do. So I hope it's along those lines in the future.
That sounds good to me. This has been ENR Groundbreakers, here with STV CEO Greg Kelly. Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you, Hemo.